Greetings, combatants. In today's video, we will be ranking the sub bosses. Something I forgot to mention in my previous video about the final bosses is oh, I slipped my mind. Never mind. Let's just rank the sub bosses. Okay, starting off, we have Goro, the most known sub boss in the series. Infamous for being the most known. So, in the original games, he was actually a clay statue. He was actually a clay figure. Like, he wasn't actually a real costume, a real design. He was just a clay figure who was used on screen and would fight the opponents. And yeah, he was much tougher than Shang Tsung in the original appearance. Like, it was more difficult to fight. He did more damage. He was a very difficult sub-boss character. His role expanded to the point of being a sub-boss, and he was sub-boss in 2 games in the original timeline, including MK4. And then he was the sub-boss in the NetherRealm timeline, but like everything else, the NetherRealm timeline does not do him the justice he previously was done in the Midway timeline. Like, defeating him was actually a big deal in the Midway timeline, but not in the NRS timeline because he's not the same anymore. So, for instance, his defeat by Noob Saibot was a pretty big deal back in the day because defeating Goro was something very few people were able to accomplish. So, yeah, he's a good sub-boss. He has a good character. He goes from villain to more so heroic character. Then his allegiance changes in Deception. So yeah, Goro is a pretty straightforward and well-documented character, and he is the most known of the sub-bosses. Like, he has the most boss appearances, he has the most character, and he is back in MK12 as a cameo fighter. So what else is there to say about Goro? He's obviously top tier when it comes to the sub-boss characters because he's the most well-known. And he's not and unlike some of the other bosses we're going to get into, he's not really much of a Shao Kahn loyalist. I mean, yeah, he serves him, but he isn't bound to him like the other boss characters. Moving along, we have Kintaro. Now, Kintaro, first of all, Kintaro is also a very difficult boss character, and he's definitely a successor to Goro, who is stated to be more ruthless and bloodthirsty than Goro, and he's also supposed to be stronger than him as a Tiger. So yeah, that's overall interesting. I don't have a problem. I find more interest with Kintaro and Motaro as characters because I want to know more about them. We've seen some about them. We see that they're more so Shao Kahn loyalists. We see that their loyalty to Shao Kahn is definitely more of their attributes, but we don't get to see much of them. And it would be nice to see much of them. The NetherRealm timeline in particular did give a little bit of insight on Kintaro about the fact that he was put into a position, was in a tournament, was in a Coliseum bout where he faced down a Centaur opponent. He defeated his Centaur opponent, then cried out for more Centaur blood, which many Centaur from the stands jumped down and who he continued to massacre, and that was a very interesting thing. His ruthlessness was so impressive that Shao Kahn made him his personal bodyguard in the NetherRealm timeline, which I also find to be pretty intriguing, but we don't know much about him. He's definitely a tougher boss fight, and he's definitely more interesting. And he definitely has an interest to him. He's definitely a character I do want to see more of, and, well, for the Storm Collectibles line, obviously. He's a part of the Storm Collectibles line, which is kind of funny how he and Motaro actually got into the Storm Collectibles line before Shang Tsung. And for the love of everything, I have no idea why Storm Collectibles decided, you know what? We need two versions of Shao Kahn. We need two versions of Goro. Let's do MKX and original timeline. Let's do MK2 through let's do original timeline Shao Kahn and MK9 Shao Kahn. Like, why? Why did you decide to do a release a figure in just a second mold? Like, why? I understand for the ninja characters, that's the reason the ninjas like Ermac and Rain and even new Cybot were able to be released, but it doesn't make sense to have both two designs of Goro and two designs of Shao Kahn when you already had one. When you already had one version of them. Like, we're not asking for the NetherRealm timeline yet. This is supposed to be the original characters. And these guys got their spots before the others did, so kind of disappointing. But yeah, definitely Kintaro, he has his midway design for... Okay, I'm gonna say it right here and right now. Kintaro looked cooler in Midway than he did in NRS. Not to say anything bad, and same goes for Goro, but I really much rather prefer those two shoulder pads, those two Silver Knight shoulder pads he wears, with the numerous amount of spikes on them, than whatever the heck they gave us. Also, the original timeline design for Goro is much cooler than the NetherRealm timeline one. Like, I don't know if everyone has a problem with that like I do. I don't know if everyone thinks the same way about certain aspects like that, but I just prefer the original timeline designs for for multiple of these characters because multiple of them had more badass designs. Even Shaolin Monks also reuses the MK2 design for him, and thankfully, because Storm Collectibles, I'm eventually going to try to get the whole entire line because, well, I like it. I already have the two Shao Kahns, if anyone's wondering. But I like the design a lot more for the originals. And, well, that mostly goes without saying much. Like, Kintaro, there's a lot of potential to do with him. Like, I personally am going to do a video on talking about the potential potential intrigue behind Kintaro's character and how you can make him interesting and give him more to do in the games than you were able to do in the NRS timeline, because of course the NRS timeline has an infamous amount of wasting potential. Like, Kintaro's death comes during the MKX comics, so yeah. Where's the potential there? Okay. Motaro. Now moving on. Motaro. Motaro, well, as I assume from each game, the sub boss and boss character is especially in the original 3 games, is an upgrade. Like, I'm not even trying to deny that. There's no denial here, which shuts things. Like, it's just a extrinsic fact, in my opinion, that Motaro is just a better boss character than the other two, than Goro and Kintaro. But this is not really an opinion based. This is not really an opinion based list. This is more so just going off of the actual information we have on them. Though I like Kintaro and Mortaro way more than I like Goro, I can't put them above Goro because they don't get enough exploration. Like, the best we really get of Motaro's characterization is his appearance in the episode of Defenders of the Realm, where he's basically saying, Shang Tsung, you are a traitor to Outworld. The Shokan are my mortal enemies. You will all pay for betraying Shao Kahn, and that's what we get off of him. Motaro is very interesting and much more fun to play. He has the laser beam tail. He has he can charge at opponents. Like, if you have seen my videos on MK12, you'll see that my cameo fighter is Motaro. I do main Motaro as my cameo fighter. And I have many reasons for doing so. First of all, I really do like Motaro as a character. So that's my basic justification for why I like so. Motaro is a much more interesting boss fight. He's much more erratic, he's much more... He teleports, he can do a bunch of things. His abilities are much more interesting, and it really feels like him as a centaur would have an easier time taking out the Shokan. Yeah. So he's just really interesting along the lines. I think it's fair to say that when you get into the sub-boss category, you had to have some intrigue. You had to have some... It's a natural progression of each boss. Like, each boss is stronger than the previous one. That's the way I see it in the sub-boss category. Okay. Without further ado, Motaro is just a fan favorite of mine. And believe me, before I even get his Kintaro Storm collectibles, Motaro will be the first of the sub-bosses added. Then Kintaro and Goro, cause that's the way I like to do it. You also have Disciples too, which I'll definitely do as well. In time, if you are interested, I could do a review of each character on the figures on my channel if you wish, but put it down in the comment section if you actually wish for me to do a review on any of these characters, because I definitely can do it at some point. Moving on, we have Mohawk. Mohawk is the sub-boss character in Deadly Alliance. Not very much to say about him. He's not much of a natural progression for the sub-boss category. He's not really exactly what I would say interesting in such a way. I think he can definitely serve the role of like a Goro to Shinnok. He can definitely serve the role as the muscle. But we never get that from him in the original or the NRS timeline. They just don't really do much with them. And they mostly just do their own thing throughout the storyline. Like, Mohawk's mostly trying to get his revenge on Quan Chi for betraying him. So, yeah. There's not really much to talk about with Mohawk. Moving on. We have Noob Smoke. Now, Noob Smoke is definitely a more difficult and interesting sub-boss to have. They're just two in one, and they also are already established characters. Like Noob Saibot is one of the most interesting and very strategic characters. Like Bihan was a super badass, and he took down many warriors, and you felt like he could take down Goro. You felt like he can be one of the few characters who can actually combat Goro in combat like he did in Deadly Alliance and actually won. though he was operating off the orders of Shao Kahn and was instructed to fatally wound him so Shao Kahn can step in and recruit him back to his side. Now, Smoke's design is exactly the same as the Cyber's previously. He still has his Cyber Smoke design, which is cooler in Deception, than in Armageddon. But Noob Saibot surprisingly has a human skin tone, which they changed in Armageddon, but it's a little strange if you ask me why that is such. I don't know why they did that for him, but he kind of just looks like Smoke is wearing the Noob Saibot costume. It doesn't matter. I mean, he still has a pretty good design throughout the games. Also, not to be judgmental towards the original games, but Noob Saibot's design, especially in the first in the original games he appeared in before he got more screen time and games following, he doesn't have an interesting design. He's just a blah. He's just a darker. He's just a shadow version. Like they literally color over like one of the ninja costumes with just black, and that's it. Like he doesn't have anything standing out about him. And one of the designs, he's just Kano. He's just Kano completely covered in black. So it's like, what the heck? That's a bad choice. Well, I say that the games that came after, like Shaolin Monks and like other games he's appeared in, he definitely has a way better design. Quan Chi. Don't really have any notes to say about Quan Chi as a sub boss character. I mean, he's definitely interesting. I feel like this list is a little incomplete with the sub boss characters because we don't have sub bosses like Darkseid in it, but whatever. What are you gonna do? It's the list I have, so I'm going off of it. Quan Chi is just the right hand. I mean, he makes sense for a sub boss. You do like the whole thing with Shao Kahn where he's the sub boss. You do it the whole thing with Shao Kahn, and then you have it with Shinnok where Quan Chi is just his subordinate, sorcerer subordinate. So, yeah, I feel like that's a very interesting aesthetic to go with, but you can still do more with him. He doesn't have that many sub-boss appearances, and I'm not sure if he's the sub-boss in MKX or not. He might be, but he also might not be. The newer games kind of have a problem with sub-bosses. Like, one of my biggest pet peeves about MK9 is the fact that we never actually got a chance to... Well... We never actually got a chance to... actually see, like, two versions of the tournament thing. Like, I would have thought we could have split off a little bit and give the players more of a choice of what they wanted to fight against. If they wanted to fight against the MK3 version if they wanted to fight against the version of MK3, or they wanted to fight MK2, or even give them an option for MK1 and have the suspected sub-bosses be a part of that. Like, I know they couldn't really get the motion capture working for Motaro, but if they were able to in a modern game like they are now, it would have been nice to see. Like, just imagine it for a second. For MK3 and MK2, we get something different. For MK2, we get the Coliseum and the sub-boss is Kintaro. For MK3, we get Shao Kahn's fortress from MK3. Also, we get a used version of the Pit 3 theme track from MK3, and we get Shao Kahn fighting MK3. And we get to see Shao Kahn fighting and we get to see Motaro as the sub-boss and Shao Kahn fighting. Also, one thing I would want to do is change up the movesets a little bit. Like Shao Kahn for the MK2 appearance would be using the spears, but for MK3 he would be using the fireball, and he would be using a lot more intensified moves because he actually wants to win. He's not like underestimating the opponents anymore, and he actually wants to pull off victories, so that's the way I would do that. But for MKX, we don't really get much of that. It really feels like NetherRealm has some wasted potential, and believe me, I will get into a wasted potential video for NetherRealm. Because they do have good ideas, but they don't use them well enough like Midway did. So, also, finally in MKX, Quan Chi got a change of outfits because, if you don't know, Deadly Alliance is where he got those symbols on his skin from. Previously, he would be wearing a cladded armor with some blue in it, with some blue clothing, and that's the way he would dress. If you want to see, look at his design in MK4 and look at his design in Conquest, and that's what he was wearing. It's not a good outfit, but it's finally something different because MK vs DCU, Shaolin Monks, and gosh. MK vs DCU, Shaolin Monks, and MK9 reused his design completely from Deadly Alliance. Like, they've been reusing the same design for a while now, and it makes no sense because his design was changed specifically because of story mode reasons. So yeah, that's really all I had to say for the sub bosses. Do we need more sub bosses in the series? Probably. Or you can just utilize the ones that are currently utilized correctly. Like, instead of having Goro as the sub boss, you can have Shang Tsung. No, you can have Quan Chi be the sub boss. Instead of having, or you can have Moloch, depending on what you want to do. I mean, it's your choice in the matter, but I think there's like a lot you can do with it. Without further ado, I'll call this a video today. Thank you all for watching. If you like my content, feel free to like and subscribe. If you don't, thank you for watching anyways. As always, God bless you all. See you in the next video.